What's up everyone? Welcome on the first video of our series AWS Hero. And today we are going to talk about the KMS. So here is Kostya and we are starting. Quick introduction on AWS Hero series. One video, one series, starting from the introduction and review the basic concept, checking how it's working on AWS side, and practical implementation. In the end, we together review the questions which you can spot in the AWS exam from associate to professional or specialty level. Now agenda of this video. On the start we will review the basic concept of encryption of the data and why it's so important. Here we check what types of KMS key exists and difference between them, and check how they looks like on the console. Then we will dive on the KMS service and review the main options, like the source, controlling of access policies, and rotation. On the last stage, review the practical usage cases of KMS keys with other AWS services, and finish on AWS exam questions. So we are starting. What is the encryption? Encryption is the process of conversion of the data from the readable format into the encoded, means of securing the digital data from the original plain text to the incompressible symbols, known as ciphertext. It's done to ensure that only authorized persons can access to this data. You can imagine like the door behind which you can find your information. When you lock this door, only persons who have the keys can open it and read your information. The same here. You secure your data using some digital key and share this key only with your friends. So even if file will receive someone else, he will not be able to view this data without your access key. And to have secure data everywhere, you need to ensure that information is encrypted all the time. This means it should be encrypted in the time when data is transporting and flows through the network or processes. It's called encryption data in transit. And on the disk or storages where the information is actually stored, called encryption at rest. The AWS provides a number of services that enable customers to easily encrypt the data and manage the keys. For example, for the encryption in transit, the AWS provides services to secure the data using the SSL or TLS for HTTPS, or IPsec for VPN connection. But here we are going to talk about the encryption data at rest, because exactly for this is using the AWS KMS service. More precisely, it provides you the space for storing your keys for the encryption and protecting them using the policies. The main benefit is integration with majority of services, which allows you to protect the data within whole AWS cloud. This is the full list of AWS services. Now how it looks like. You request your encryption key, or you can import your own. The KMS service is saving your key and restrict with the policies, managed by you. As a result, you can take it in any time and use for encryption and decryption actions. But you don't need to bother about the securing the place of your private key, about the rotation, or how you should use this key with AWS services like EC2 virtual instances or S3 bucket storage. On AWS Cloud exists three types of keys: AWS Owned Keys, AWS Managed Keys, and Customer Managed Key or CMK. AWS Owned Keys are a collection of KMS keys managed by AWS for use in multiple accounts. This means you are not even to see them because they are stored internally. Although they are used for the protection of resources in your account, and you cannot view, use, track or audit them, but also AWS do not charge you monthly fee for usage of them. AWS Managed Key are a collection of KMS key created especially for your account. You cannot manage them, but in this case you are able to see them on AWS console and even use for your services. For example, you are not allowed to create new or delete existing AWS Managed Key. You cannot rotate them or change their policies. But if you need to use the encryption and you don't want to manage your own keys, the AWS Managed Key is a great solution. You can identify this case by their alias, which have the format AWS service name, for example the AWS Redshift or any other AWS service. One important thing, that you not paying monthly fee for the storing AWS Managed Key and for the request to this KMS case from the row of resources, but when used on behalf of a principal in your AWS account, the KMS case count against the request quotes. So such cases you will pay for the count of requests to your KMS service. And the last on our table is customer managed key. This KMS key created by the customer, means by yourself. So here you have full freedom to controlling them, including add or delete actions, maintaining the policies and rotation of the keys. Theoretically speaking, you just store your encryption key on the KMS service repository. From this remember that customer managed key incurs a monthly fee and counted quotes from the number of requests to them. Now to understand more clearly it, let's have a look on AWS console. Type the KMS on search field and click on Key Managed Service. On left side you can find the tabs with AWS Managed Key and Customer Managed Keys. Because as you remember the AWS owned keys we are not able to even see, and the custom key stores, to which we will back later. On AWS Managed Key we can find the keys which we are used before for the encryption of the services. Like in this example, I have used the AWS Managed Key for the SSM, ACM and S3 services, and they have an alias of AWS Managed Key accordingly. Now if we will click on any of them, we can find the key details, that this key is an enabled status, and on a RAN number of the key we can find the our account ID. It means that this key is used only for this account. So if we will have a look on the key policies, we can find the access condition that this key can be used only for the S3 service and only by this account, and you are not able to change these policies because it's AWS managed. On the cryptographic configuration tab, we can find the details of it, like the key type, origin means who creates this key, and the key usage information, that it can be used only for the encrypt and decrypt actions. Okay, next is CMK. For now I don't have any resources here, so let's create it. Type let's leave the symmetric one, like we had on AWS Managed Key. Just provide the name to KMS key. And other options I will skip for now, because we will talk about them later. On the final review page, we can find the information about the configuration options, like the key type or regionality. You will not be able to change this later, so these options you can specify only once on the stage of creation of the key. So again, we will talk about them later, so let's skip it for now. And we can go. Great, now if we will go inside of this key, comparing with AWS Managed Key, we will find a lot of options which we can change. The access configuration within account, and even sharing this key with other AWS accounts. The cryptographic configuration is only one tab of options which we are not allowed to change anymore. The text data, rotation policy, and additional alias to this key. Now as we are owner of this key, we should have an access to manage it. Let's try to disable it and delete after. Click on Key Actions and disable. Confirm it. Okay, and we have it. Now this key is disabled and it's not be able to use it anymore. To delete it, click again on the Actions and schedule key deletion. Here you will see the red warning message that deletion of this key is not restorable action. And if you have any data which is encrypted by this key, it will make this data unrecoverable. Exactly for this, the AWS is not allowed to drop the KMS key immediately. So even if you wanted to delete this KMS key, you will have the waiting period on this, to make sure that you are okay with this action. As we don't have any data encrypted by this key, let's put here the minimal waiting period, which is 7 days. Please try to keep in mind this value. Confirm this action and delete. Now key is on pending deletion status and will be removed from the AWS after waiting period 7 days. Go back to our presentation. Time to talk about the KMS key configuration. Do you remember when we started the creation of customer management key? We had the choice between the symmetric and asymmetric key configuration. As you probably know, the symmetric encryption in cryptography uses the single key to encrypt and decrypt the data, and when you want to decrypt any information, you require this private key. So the main advantage of symmetric encryption is that easy to set up it. But as well it's the main disadvantage, because when you need to share some encrypted data with others, you need to send the encrypted file with private key, because without it you will not be able to decrypt the data. On case of asymmetric encryption, it's getting a bit more complicated, because here you will have two keys to work. One is private and one is public. Private key you're storing for yourself and using only for the decryption purposes. Like the public one, you can share with others and allow them to encrypt any kind of data using this key. So even if this schema is more heavy, it's more secured, as you don't need to share this private key. So on theory, only you can decrypt the data signed by your key. Back to KMS. The type of KMS key that you can create depends on how you plan to use this key. So before review of configuration type, let's define what you can do by using them. Bear in mind that you are not allowed to change this configuration later, so that's why it's so critical to understand how you are going to use this KMS key before its creation. The first action is encrypt and decrypt data, of course. On such situation, when you are going to use the KMS only for this, better solution will be create the symmetric key. As symmetric encryption algorithm that KMS use is fast, efficient and ensure the security of the data. But on situation when you want to use the key for the encryption outside the AWS, asymmetric keys are a good choice, because you can distribute the public key for the encryption the data and decrypt via AWS KMS. Keep in mind that on public key encryption, you must use the RSA public key crypto system. The technology of ECC encryption, which is also supported by KMS, works only for the sign-in messages. No worries about the crypto systems, we will talk later. And actually the next what you can do with KMS keys is signing and verify signatures. The same situation here. For this you must use the asymmetric KMS key, so that people who send your message can sign them using the RSA or ECC public keys. And on the receiving stage you can check if these messages are valid and signed by your key. On this table provided all key specs for KMS keys, the RSA and elliptic curve key specs. Remember please what specs are using for, as this question can appear on exam of security specialty or professional level. Before we will move to the next topic, I want to ask you to support me on creation of AWS Hero videos. If you will subscribe to this channel and leave some comments, YouTube will promote this video and I will have more motivation on creation of next series. So let's move on. The next novel list is sources topic. By default, when you create the key on AWS KMS service, the AWS handling all part of generation of key materials for you. But you can create the KMS key by your own and import to KMS. This feature often known like bring your own key. Although key materials is not equal the key. Key materials identifies the cryptographic secrets that compose the key, and under the key definition is covering the named file with these key materials. Please be aware, right now we are talking about the importing key to the AWS KMS, but not using them outside. It does not support decrypt any ciphertext outside the AWS KMS, even if the ciphertext was encrypted under the KMS key with imported key materials. Back to the import case. On such way you have two options. First is very simple. This is the situation when you generate the key materials by your own. So on AWS you just need to get the token, sign it key materials by this token, and just import to the KMS. No worries, after I will demonstrate how to do this. But before you will decide to go with this solution, you should understand the following details of imported key materials. Here you are responsible not only for the generation of key materials, you are also responsible for the availability and durability. As you generate this key before, AWS cannot be responsible for the availability of the key. The same with durability. You can set the expiration time of your imported key materials, and AWS will delete them after it expires. But AWS will leave the KMS key and its metadata. The same situation when you will delete the key materials manually. They can be cleared immediately, but keys still should be deleted only after waiting period as usual KMS key. The second way is very familiar with the previous one. The difference that you are doing the wrap process on the Cloud HSM. The Cloud HSM is cloud-based hardware security model. It's familiar to KMS but realized on FIPS 142nd level 3 on hardware 1, as KMS realized on FIPS 142nd level 2. If you want to know more about the Cloud HSM, I will prepare dedicated video for this. Now time to implementation. Let's go to the AWS console. Switch on AWS KMS service. go to the customer managed key and create new one. Leave the symmetric type, but on advanced option we are going to change the material origin. Like we discussed, we have three options: KMS, which is default one, external, which is actually going to use right now, and cloud HSM. So click on external and mark agreement that you understand all rules of usage the imported case. Here we put just a name, all other options will leave like they are. And the same with permissions. And click Finish. Now you have to choose the wrapping algorithm for your key. Full list of specific key already presented in the table a few minutes ago. For the test I will choose the SHA1 and download the wrapping key and import token files. Okay, let's have a look what we have inside of this archive. First unzip it. And here we have three files. First is just readme file with information about the key, like the ID of wrapping key and import token, the algorithm and the time of expiration. An actual imported token and the wrapping key. So the next what we actually need to do is to prepare the key materials which we want to import to KMS. You of course can skip this step if you have it already, but I will quick generate new one with OpenSSL tool. Okay, now we have it, let's wrap it using the KMS wrapping key. On this again will help the OpenSSL tool, option encrypt our generated key, on in key option specify the wrapping KMS key, and on the out specify any name what you want. Exactly this output file we will import to the KMS. Click on the next, and on the step you have two types to upload your key materials. On the wrapped key select the file which you just did, and on the import token select the file which was on the zip file downloaded from the KMS service. Here you have the chance to set the expiration date for your key materials. For the test I will not do this right now, and when you will click on upload you will see your KMS key. Let's click on it, and on the section key materials you can find few options. You can download again the wrapping key and import token if you want to prepare the new key materials. Where upload key materials button you can update them, and you can delete them manually, what I actually wanted to do right now. Confirm this action and delete. Now if we will go back to the list of KMS key, our KMS key still will be there, but status will be changed on the pending import, which is expectable, because no key materials inside. So to delete this key completely we need to do this manually. Select it and plan delete action, like the simple KMS key. The next small topic which I wanted to highlight about the KMS, it's also very important in my opinion, and can be very useful on the practice. This is the multi-region KMS case. Why I'm thinking that this topic is so important? Because I see a lot of cases where it can be helped to save a lot of time and money. For example, on active-active architecture, where you need to have some encrypted application on the different regions. For disaster recovery, when you have the backup region and store your backups on encrypted view. And on emergency cases, just use the multi-region key to decrypt this data from the backup region. Cases you can find a lot, so let's back to the multi-region KMS case. The first what you should remember, that this option is one from the main key configuration options, and you can specify it only once on the state of creation of the key. After you cannot change this option, and for the multi-region functionality you will need to create the new key. How it works? You create the KMS key on your primary region, with the mark multi-region key. When you will have it, you can go to the key options and you will see the tab Regionality. And from there you are able to see two actions. First of course is the list of regions where you want to have this key. When you will select some region, the AWS VR Security channel will transport the KMS key materials on that region. As a result, you will have the same encryption key on both regions, but they will live independently from each other. Means if you will change the tags or aliases to one key, they will not be replicated to another. Just one important thing that they will have same ARN number, just inside will be changed the name of the region. The second action, what you can do, is ability to change the primary key. So if you want to change the placement of your primary key materials, you can just replicate them and change the primary flag on the replica. Now let's have a look on AWS console. Go to the KMS service, Customer Managed Case, and create new one. On Advanced Options we have our Regionality, click on Multi-Region Key. Let's set some alias. And other option we can stay like they are. On the review section we can find the information which I mentioned on the start, that regionality is one from the key configuration which you are not able to change after the creation of the key. We are okay with this, so we can create. Now to make sure that we don't have any case on this region where we want to replicate the key, go there and have a look on the list Customer Managed Case. As you can see from here, we have no case here, so we are ready to replicate it. Back to our primary region, Regionality section, and click on Create New Replica Key button. Here AWS will provide the AWS regions when you want to have this key, and you will be forwarded on the creation page. For the demo I will leave everything by the default. Click on confirmation that you understand about the multi-region key policies, and click Create. Okay, it appears on the list of replicas, but also it should be present already on the replica region. And there it is. Let's wait a couple of seconds to change the status of the key on enabled one. Great, now to ensure that these keys are independent, we will change the alias and we will see if this action will be replicated on the master key. Click Create Alias, let it be like Backup Encryption, and all alias we will remove. Okay, we have it. Back to the primary region. And here is nothing was changed. If we will go inside of this key, we can find this key on related multi-region key section. And it will have the same ARN number like the original key, just will be the change in the region section. So what else we can do here is change the primary key on replicated one, and they will just change the roles. Primary key will be related and vice. Awesome news, we almost review all options which are related to the KMS. The next row is accessibility of KMS case. Here you have two options to manage permission to your case. One is standard one AWS system for Identify and Access Management Service, or IAM. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this because IAM service planning to cover on separate video. Only want to show you the simple example and the list allowed actions to use there. Like here you can see the permissions to specific two keys on EU West 2 region. They are ARN number specified on the resource section. And on the action you can set the list of the actions which you can do with this case. For example, the following IAM policy statement allows the principals to call the describe key, generate data key, and decrypt operations only. You can also put here the different kind of condition, which can provide the better flexibility. And big list of allowed actions gives the ability to control permissions like you want. The second option is personal key policies. Key policies are primary way to control the AWS KMS key. Keep in mind that every KMS key must have exactly only one KMS policy. It's familiar to IAM policy, but key policy provides only one more level of security. The statement in the KMS key policy document determines who has permission to use the KMS key and how it can be used. Have a look on this example. The following example shows you completed key policy for Symmetric KMS key, and it allows IAM user KMS admin user and IAM role KMS admin role to administrate this KMS key, and only for them. Which is cool, cause if you have some security key which access it should be strictly limited, the KMS key policy is great solution for this. And these policies is easy to create. Let's have a look on the console one more time. Click on Create Key, specify the name, and AWS will provide to us the section where we will able to set the administrator rights to this key. For now, let's grant the admin permission to our admin user. And on the next page you have the usage permission. Grant here the access to the test user. Or of course you can share this key with other AWS accounts. So now let's review the page and scroll down a bit on the key policies. Here we can find the permissions, what we set. On the top the full permissions of the key, for current user which is owner of this key. Later on the section of administrator access with ARN of our admin user and list actions for the management. And the last will be the section for usage policies, where specified our test user. From this you can see how KMS key policy can be easily created. Okay, let's back to the presentation. Also, you have one more way to grant the usage permission to your key. This feature is not very often used, but sometimes it can be very useful. For sure it's useful in the cases when you need to grant the temporary access to the KMS key. So now let's talk about the KMS Grants. KMS Grant is a method of allowing to use the KMS key using the temporary permission of grantor person. The flow is very simple. You have permission to some KMS key, and you want to give the access to this key to some other entity file. One thing which is neat is request the grant token from the KMS service with requested permission and share it with other entity file. It's working kind of like STS, but only for the action on specified KMS key. I will show you how it's working after the review. Just try to remember the next option of KMS grants. First, that you can grant access only the one KMS key. You can allow access on usage, but cannot deny. Each grant must have at least one guarantee person. You can revoke anytime this grant permission. And AWS has own limits on the grant of each KMS key. By default is 50k of grants. Now let me present it on the practice. First, let's quick create the KMS key. All options I will stay like they are. Specify the alias to our key. And like the admin, I will select the administrator user KMS admin. Usage users I will stay empty. Click on Create. Go inside and copy the ARN of the key. Open the console. And if we will check the AWS credential file, we will find two profiles. Default one is KMS admin user, which is owner of KMS key, and the second profile named read. It just created IAM user with no permission on KMS at all. Here I want to use the read user to work with KMS key using the KMS grants. Check if we have this key on the list. Okay, it's here. Now create the grant token. AWS KMS create grant. Set KID. On the guarantee principle need to specify the our read user. And on operation specify what actions you wanted to grant. Here I just wanted to test the encryption operation. Great, it returns the token and ID of this grant. Let's try to use it. AWS KMS encrypt action. Encrypt test word. With the KID which we already know. And grant token we can copy from the previous output. And on the end we need just to specify to use the read profile. Whoops, need to specify the region, not a problem. We successfully encrypted the test word using the KMS grants. To revoke the access, you can do just revoke grant command, where you need to specify the KID and the grant ID. And they are gone. As you can see, this feature can be very useful on some cases. Back to presentation. One more aspect which I wanted to cover on security part is ability to track the activity with KMS and possibility to control them. For the monitoring of activity the KMS case, you can use the CloudTrail, as each call and the management request is still going through the AWS API and can be tracked by CloudTrail. It can be obvious, but please remember in your exam. The same with controlling of the policies of the case and case like themselves. In this situation will be very useful the AWS config service, which can notify or even to repair unexpected actions related to your KMS or the policies. So these two tools can be provide you better security for your encryption mechanism. And the last but not least is option of KMS rotation. Rotation is the process of changing the key materials of the time for more security. And to review all of them, we need to split them based on the key type. First column is AWS managed key. We don't have so much information about them because all decision on rotation is done by AWS team internally, and they are responsible for it. The next AWS managed key. The same situation with responsibilities here. AWS will do everything for you, cause no customer action allowed here. But still here we will have full picture of this process. By default, AWS managed key rotated once per 3 years. And the process is done that new bucket key is created and marked like the active for any future requests. Like the old one is not going to be terminated, because if we will lose it, then all data encrypted by this key will be stay unrecoverable. So AWS is saving cold keys, and they will be used only for the decryption already exist objects. More complicated picture we can find on the customer managed case. As you can see, we will split the CMK also on the two types. One is created by AWS and second is imported case. On created by AWS, here we have two options to control the rotation. One is automatic option, you can set it in any time, and it will rotate once per year. Exactly this time is default one, or just do it manually. The process of rotation is similar with AWS managed key. For CMK imported case, we have another situation. You have here only way of manual rotation. Automatically you can set only the expiration of key materials. But process is the same. You create the new CMK or import and bind all apps on it. Just don't forget to not delete the old key materials, because it can risk on losing the data. Great, we together review all main options of KMS. Before we will go to the question sections and exam advices, I want to review with you few cases. To be more specific, 2 cases. One, I just want to provide you the picture how KMS encryption works with EBS for EC2 instances, and later show you how KMS is working with S3 service. This is the basic schema, how encryption of elastic block storages works using the KMS service. To understand it more clear, we can go one by one. Step 1 will be the KMS is generating plaintext random key and encrypt it using the master key of required region. Step 2 is copying the encrypted key to EBS service to encrypt the EBS volume using this key and store this encrypted key inside the EBS volume. Please be aware that right now we are talking about the EC2 service, not EC2 instance like virtual instances. The next step is coming on the stage of running EC2 instance. When you're starting it, AWS decide on which physical instances EC2 virtual machine should be. And on memory of this machine, KMS is copying the plain text of K for the future decryption. The last step is running the process of EC2 virtual machine on hardware where your key is already, and due to its storing on the memory and on the plain text view, the crypt of EBS is not too much affect the EC2 performance. Great to understand it before you are going to take the exam. And for sure you need to understand the difference between the virtual machine and hardware machine where it's running. So on case of restart of EC2 virtual machine, the hardware will not require again this key, cause it still will be on the memory. But on case when hardware instance will be restarted, or on the case if your EC2 instance will be moved to the different hardware, KMS will provide again the plain text version of the key. To close this topic of EC2 instances, I want to show you the process of encryption of already existed EBS volume on the running EC2 instance, cause this question can appear on security specialty exam. So let's get to the AWS console. EC2 service. Select the instance, and on the storage tab we can ensure that EBS volume is not encrypted. Okay, let's stop the instance first. Now to encrypt the volume for this virtual instance, we need to do the following. Go to the volumes, select the volume and create the snapshot. On this stage we will state the unencrypted snapshot for our EC2 root volume. When it will be completed, select it and click on Copy Snapshot. Now we are able to choose if we want to have encrypt this data or no. So mark the encrypt flag and select the encryption key. Now copy snapshot. Wait a bit and it will be done. At the same time, let's go to the EC2 instance and have a look on which availability zone is. Okay, it's EU West B. Back to our snapshots. Select the new one. Make sure that it's encrypted. Click on the actions and create the volume from the snapshot. Change the availability zone on the zone where our instance is placed. And on this time, as snapshot is encrypted already, the volume will be encrypted as well. So we can go with it. Go to the volumes list. If we will click on the new one, we can see that it's encrypted by the key which encrypts the snapshot. From that one action, what is required from us is deattach the previous root volume and attach the new one encrypted. Let's refresh the list of instances. And on the storages we can find encrypted volume with the same data which it was before. One mark on this. Make sure that your instance has access to this KMS key. It should be granted on IAM level for your instance IAM role, and also on KMS key policy you should have the permission on key for your role. Also, one more time, make sure that you understand this process of encryption to existed volumes, because this question can appear on exam. And the last topic which I wanted to discuss is about S3 bucket encryption. It's not directly connected to the KMS, at least not all these options, but for more clear picture I want to present you all of them. Before we will review the types of S3 encryption, you should understand that we are doing encryption not on the level of S3 bucket like itself, but we are doing the encryption of the objects inside of this bucket. First is very simple type. Call it client-side encryption. On this schema we don't have any KMS service, because all encryption's action is done on the user side and to the S3 bucket pushing already encrypted objects. Second is calling server-side encryption with customer-managed key. When encryption is done by AWS inside of S3, but full management process of key on the user side, so that user provides the secret key which should be used, and Amazon S3 is used this key to apply EOS 256 encryption to your object. On the next type appearing the KMS service. This is its default option of encryption, calling server-side encryption with S3 managed key. On this type the user is not bothering about the encryption at all. He can just enable the encryption of objects in S3 using the AWS KMS service, so that each time when user push the data to S3, it will be encrypted by this key. And the last type is almost the same. One difference that user use not AWS managed key, but customer managed key created by himself, and other encryption actions are done on same way. Now time on summary. Prepare yourself, because we will have a lot of items which should be great to remember. Okay, KMS is an encryption and key management web service. It's region-based service and has integration with a lot number of AWS services. Validated under the FIPS 142nd level 2 and using base 64 encoding format. Key types can be AWS owner case, AWS managed case, and customer managed case. By configuration type, keys can be symmetric and asymmetric. Don't forget that this option can be set only on the creation step. And control access policy to KMS key can be done on IAM service and key policies. About AWS owned keys, keep in mind that you cannot see and manage them, and they are shared across few accounts. Like the AWS managed key are dedicated for each account and they were able to see them, but management part still on AWS. They are marked by reserved format and default rotation period is once per 3 years. And the last is customer managed key, which is created by the client and they can use it and manage them. You can share them with other AWS accounts. Also, you can import own key materials from the different sources mentioned before. You can work with the data up to 4 kilobytes using the customer managed case. And about the rotation, support the manual and automatic way on case not imported case. The automatic is disabled by default, but it can be rotated once per year. From regionality, you need to bear in mind that this option is also supported here. Not on China yet, but for other regions you can use this feature to share the key materials across few regions. Don't forget that this option can be enabled on the creation stage. Replicated keys have same ARN, just change the region name. Replicated keys are independent from each other, but primary flag still can be switched on the secondary region on any time. And the last summary page about the sources. Here you have 3 types of sources: KMS, external from outside, and Cloud HSM, but support only 256-bit keys. You can choose the wrapping algorithm on stage of import. You cannot import the same key materials twice, because AWS is tracking it. And about the rotation, you have only one way to rotate them manually. From the automatic way, you can just set the expiration date. Great, want to thank you for watching this video. Leave this feedback on these comments. And right now we are moving to the last part, to discover what questions about the KMS can appear on certifications. The topic of encryption exists on all AWS certifications. The only difference is on the level of immersion in this topic. So answer on the question what I can expect on AWS exam, we need to go one by one certification and start from the AWS certification cloud participants. For sure, on this certification you will not spot tricky question about the KMS service, but here you should strongly know about the concept of encryption the data, why it's so required, and what types of data encryption exists. About the KMS service, you can have some more overall questions, like the main purpose of the KMS service and the main benefits. Let's together review the few of questions which you can spot on AWS certification cloud participants about the KMS. First, which AWS service is used to encrypt the Amazon EBS data? A. AWS Secrets, B. AWS EC2, C. AWS KMS, and D. AWS Config. And we are know that the right answer is C. AWS KMS. The next is, what services are integrated with AWS KMS? AWS S3, AWS EBS, AWS SQS, all of them. Do you remember on the start of this video I provided you the list of the services, which is integrated with KMS? So we are know that right answer is all of them, so D. I think this exam shouldn't make any discomfort to you, and you will pass it for sure. So we can move to another certification, which is associate level of AWS certifications. From the description to pass this certification, you should have at least 1 year of practical experience with AWS. And the question about KMS service you will meet for sure, and they will be harder. I don't want to review each certification separately, so here we will cover 3 certifications of associate level: Solution Architect, SysOp Administrator, and Developer. You will not spot on this certification very tricky question about the KMS, but on this time you will need to have more deeply understanding on this service. From what level of encryption KMS is working to for what you will pay on KMS service. Make sure that you clearly understand 3 types of case, any difference between customer managed key and AWS managed case, because such questions you can find on any from these 3 certifications. The same situation about the symmetric and asymmetric case. You should know how they can be imported and used on AWS. And 100% you will spot the questions about the permission to the KMS case. These questions very often appear especially on AWS Solution Architect exam. So let's have a look on a few samples. The company's security team requires that all data stored in the cloud to be encrypted at rest all the time, using the encryption case stored on-premise. Which encryption option will meet all requirements? And you have few variants to choose, select all. A. Server-side encryption using the Amazon S3 managed case. B. Use server-side encryption using the AWS KMS managed case. C. Server-side encryption with the customer-provided case. D. Use client-side encryption to provide at-rest encryption. And E. Use the AWS Lambda function triggered by AWS 3 event to encrypt the data using the customer case. Put the pause on this video and we'll try to answer on this question by yourself. If you have answered the C and D, it's correct. Because as you already know, the SSE S3 and SSE KMS encryption is working on KMS service, so you cannot store the case on your on-premise hosts. And use the Lambda is not very good choice, because it will be triggered when object will be already uploaded to S3. And for example, if this object is big, the encryption can take a time and Lambda can just out with timeout. Okay, one more question, and this time a bit harder. A company has AWS workloads in the multiple geographical locations. A developer has created the Aurora database in US West 1 region. The database is encrypted using the customer managed key. Now developer want to create the same encrypted database in US East 1 region. Which approach should take the developer? And the variants. A. Create the snapshot of database in US West region. Copy the snapshot to US East 1 region and specify the KMS key in US East region. Restore the database from the copy snapshot. B. Create the encrypted snapshot of the database in US West 1 region. Copy the snapshot to the US East region. Restore the database from the copy snapshot. And enable the encryption using the KMS key from the US East region. C. Disable encryption on the database. Create the snapshot of the database in US West 1 region. Copy the snapshot to US East region. Restore the database from the copy snapshot. And the D. In the US East region, choose the restore the latest automated backup from the database from the US West 1 region and enable the encryption of KMS key in US East region. Pause this video and try to answer. Okay, let's review all of them. A. We create the snapshot of database on origin region, copy the snapshot to the destination region, and restore using the key from the destination region. For me looks okay. What we have else here? On the B we are going to create the unencrypted snapshot, which is wrong from the start, because we are not able to make an encrypted snapshot from the already encrypted database. C is wrong also, because you cannot stop the encryption. And the D is not an option, because there used one key to encrypt the both regions, and as you already know, we cannot do this. So option A, to use the multi-region KMS key and restore snapshot from the destination region, is the right answer. You can find this question difficult, but if you will spot such questions on the exam, my advice to you to calm down and carefully read the question and all answers. Because when you know all restrictions of KMS service, you should be not a problem to find the correct answer. Okay, now time to the professional level. Here we have two certifications. One is more from the design view, is solution architect, and the second more based on the practical experience, is DevOps engineer. Let's do this. You have an application on the production with encrypted RDS database instance on EU Central 1 region. With growing customer lists, you're thinking to prepare the active multi-region setup with EU West region to avoid any downtime. What actions are correct on this situation? A. Enable the multi-region option of KMS, prepare the snapshot of database, copy it on EU West region, and run the replication. B. RDS multi-region option allows you to use the separate KMS for managing database in different regions, so only the action which you need to enable the multi-region option on the RDS service and AWS will handle everything for you. C. Disable the encryption using the KMS and migrate the database on EC2 instances. Block storages can be encrypted using the customer managed key from the on-premise host, so no need to copy the key in the few regions. And D. Known above. Pausing. And this answer should be obvious. Correct the answer is D. If you know why, write the comments to this video. Next one. A company is using the AWS code build to build its application. Company policy requires all builds artifacts to be encrypted at rest. Access to these artifacts must be limited to IAM users with permission to assume this operation role. How can this requirements to be met? A. Add the post build command to the code command build specification that pushes build objects to an Amazon S3 bucket. Set the bucket policy that prevents uploads to the bucket unless the request includes the header XAMZ server-side encryption. Add a deny statement for all actions with not principal section referencing the operations IAM group. B. Add the post build command to the code build specification that pushes build objects to the Amazon S3 bucket. Configure S3 event notification to trigger the AWS Lambda function to get the object encrypted, then put it back to the S3 bucket with encrypted tag key and the true tag value. Add S3 bucket policy with deny statement for all actions with not principal section referencing the operation IAM group and the condition section referencing the encrypted tag. C. Add to the post build command to the code build specification that pushes build to the objects to S3 bucket that has S3 default encryption enabled. Set S3 bucket policy containing the deny statement for all actions with not principal section referencing the operation IAM role. D. Add post build command to the code build specification that calls the AWS KMS encrypt API calls, passing the artifact to the AWS KMS for encryption with specified customer management key. Push the encrypted artifact to S3 bucket, then set up the IAM operation group as the only key user for that CMK in AWS KMS. Of course, on this case, correct answer will be C. The S3 default encryption ensures that artifacts are encrypted at rest, and default bucket policy can control access to these artifacts. Great! The last certification about we are going to talk is security specialty. Here definitely you can expect most tricky question related to the KMS, and 100% you will spot question about the KMS. So in this case, please be sure that you are ready and you know everything about the KMS service. And as usual, the question. A company is building a data lake on Amazon S3. The data consists of millions of small files containing the sensitive information. The security team has following requirements for the architecture. Data must be encrypted in transit, data must be encrypted at rest, the bucket must be private, but if bucket incidentally made public, the data must remain confidential. Which combination of the steps would meet these requirements? A. Enable AES 256 encryption using the server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed encryption case on the S3 bucket. B. Enable default encryption with server-side encryption with Amazon KMS managed case on the S3 bucket. C. Deny the bucket policy that includes deny if put object requests do not include the AWS secure transport. D. Add to the bucket policy with AWS source IP to allow uploads and downloads from the corporate internet only. And E. Enable the Amazon Matcher to monitor the act of changes to do the data lake's S3 bucket. We'll do the small pause. Okay, as you can see, such questions are very confused because provide a lot of almost correct answers. So first what we need, just check the requirements. What options can provide to us the encryption at rest? And of course it's option B. It will be allows to protect the data on the S3 using the KMS key. But also it can help us with third requirement, when bucket accidentally goes public, because even if outside someone will download this information, it still will be encrypted, and the key will be protected by KMS policies. And the option C will help us to secure the data in transit, because you will not be able to put any unsecured files on S3 bucket, so we have guarantees that everything there encrypted. Good, we made overall overviews the questions which you can spot on AWS exams related to the KMS series. I hope it was useful for you. Like the last word on my video, I wanted to give you advices. First, read the white papers about the KMS and make sure that you understand all main concepts and functions of KMS series. Because based on this knowledge, you can find the answer even on the questions and save time for the other questions. For now that's all. Thanks for watching this really long video. If it was useful for you, click like on this video and subscribe this button to not miss the next videos. And leave the comments with the service which you wanted to see on the next video of List AWS Hero section. Here was Kostya for you. See ya!